Good afternoon, and welcome to Founder News Network. I am Temi Kasim, your ears in the trenches and your eyes on Capitol Hill. Today's news features discussion on President George Washington's third term, John Adams' Sedition Act, Thomas Jefferson's Louisiana Purchase, James Madison and the War of 1812, and James Monroe and his Monroe Doctrine. Stay tuned for more! George Washington, our very first president, has been faithfully leading this country for almost 8 years. During his time as president, he has already built this country from the ground up without any outline to go on. With the help of his cabinet, Thomas Jefferson, Alexander Hamilton, Henry Knox, and Edmund Randolph, Washington has started his first national bank and appointed John Jay as the first Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. We at Founders News Network tried to set up an interview with the president, but unfortunately he is busy preparing for the State of Union address to the Congress to notify them of all government proceedings for the year and will not be taking any visitors at this time. Now, Washington's presidency has not been all work and no play. He takes regular breaks from his stressful job as president to return to his home, Mount Vernon, Virginia, where he lives on a farm with his wife, the First Lady, Martha Washington. Mr. President, we thank you for your service and await many more precedents that you will set in your third term. This is Temi Kasim from Founders News Network, and we will be back after these messages. Oh, wait, what? This just in. President George Washington just announced that he will not be running for a third term. With more information on this startling development, Abby Jacobs is in New York City, where George Washington apparently is giving a farewell address to the people of America. Abby?
Thank you, Timmy. I'm here in New York City awaiting further information about the farewell of George Washington. In his farewell address, he has mentioned his final precedents for the American people. He has advised Americans alike not to fall victim to partisanship, foreign entanglements, or regionalism, but instead have a sense of unity, nationalism, and neutrality in all foreign entanglements. Here is the conclusion of President Washington's farewell address to the American people.
Though, in reviewing the incidents of my administration, I am unconscious of intentional error. I am nevertheless too sensible of my defects not to think it probable that I may have committed many errors. I shall also carry with me the hope that my country will never cease to view them with indulgence, and that after 45 years of my life dedicated to its service with an upright zeal, the faults of incompetent abilities will be consigned to oblivion, as I myself will soon be to the mansions of rest. I anticipate with pleasing expectation that retreat, in which I promise myself to realize the sweet enjoyment of partaking in the midst of my fellow citizens, the benign influence of the good laws and the free government, and the ever-favorite object of my heart, and the happy reward, as I trust, of our mutual cares, labors, and dangers.
Well, there you have it. The final words of a great man, a great leader, who will forever be remembered in history. This was Abby Jacobs with your breaking news. Back to you, Timmy.
Thank you, Abby. Next up, I interviewed John Adams on the details of the Alien and Sedition Act. I'm here with President John Adams, the second President of the United States. How are you today, Mr. Adams?
I'm fine, thank you. Just happy to be here.
Thank you for taking your time out of your busy schedule to speak with us. Now, for a little background for our viewers. Mr. Adams, you ran for presidency against Thomas Jefferson, correct?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
That was a very close election, if I remember correctly. Anyways, how did you get the reputation that allowed you to win the presidency?
Well, I helped negotiate the Treaty of Paris, which opened up trade routes between us and Europe. But nothing within my youth prepared me for the presidency. When England and France went to war, the nation's economy fell, something that Thomas Jefferson never fails to mention when we meet up.
So, your feud with Thomas Jefferson ultimately contributed to many decisions you made in office, it seems.
Definitely. Those Democratic Republicans never gave me a break. I passed the Alien and Sedition Act just to keep them from rallying all the immigrants towards their cause.
Really? What did that
Well, it increased requirements for people who wanted to become citizens. I extended the naturalization process from 4 to 15 years, gave the government power to deport and detain dangerous immigrants, and limited the freedom of speech and press, making it a crime to publish or speak of false accusations against my administration. Oh yeah, and I arrested anyone who helped or hid alien immigrants.
Wow. That seems like a little bit of an overkill.
I mean, it did have a negative effect on my approval ratings, which caused me to lose the election of 1800 to Thomas Jefferson. That was just insult to injury. He had already condemned my Alien and Sedition Act, passing laws in his state to counteract its effects, and beginning the conversation about states' rights. I mean, if you want overkill, Jefferson's your man.
Well, that's an interesting perspective on the events, Mr. Adams, but I'm afraid that's all the time we have for you today. Stay tuned for a special presentation courtesy of Lewis and Clark. And we're back. In case you were just joining us, I am Temi Kasim, and you are watching Founders News Network. We resume with a special presentation on the Lewis and Clark expedition. Hi everyone, I'm Temi.
And I'm Abby, and we're accompanying Meriwether Lewis and William Clark on their expedition out west.
Of course, none of this would be possible without our president, Thomas Jefferson.
I know, and for someone who was really opposed to the expansion of the federal government, he sure has pulled a lot of strings to make this happen. And whew, I need a breather. Let's stop for a second. William, we'll catch up in a minute. So, where did this all start in the first place?
Well, all this started because America wanted to purchase the port of New Orleans from the French. We had a lot of American traders living there, and it was important to get the harbor to expand trade. Napoleon, the leader of France, met with James Monroe and Robert Livingston and came to agreement that France would sell the port and the rest of the region to the United States for $15 million US.
Oh, that makes sense. France was at war with England and needed money to pay for the war.
Yeah.
I'm sure they didn't want England expanding their territory in America either.
You're absolutely right. And now that we have all this new land, who knows what's in store next? That's why we're out here exploring with Lewis and Clark. We're mapping rivers and mountains, finding species of plants and animals, and meeting all these new native tribes while we're at it.
Look! Is that the Pacific Ocean over there? I think everyone's stopping.
Oh my gosh! It is! Now I can claim the whole entire area for the United States.
We better catch up before they name this new region. I'm thinking something like Oregon.
We better go then. This is Temi and Abby on the Lewis and Clark expedition. Back to the studio. What a time we had. Up next, startling new developments coming from the front lines. We'll be right back on Founders News Network. Welcome back to Founders News Network. As we speak, Abby's on the front lines documenting new developments in the War of 1812. Abby?
Thank you, Temi. The War of 1812 is escalating, despite all attempts by President James Madison to avoid it. It doesn't help that the situation was already bad when Madison came into office. Despite his best efforts, Madison asked Congress to write a declaration of war on June 12, 1812. Looking at the causes that led up to the war, it seems impossible that any other compromise could have been reached. I mean, England refused to let Americans trade with the French, forced American men to join the British Navy, and refused to follow the Treaty of Paris, which was signed at the end of the Revolutionary War. Many Americans even believed that the British were aiding Native Americans in their fight against settlers west of the Appalachian Mountains. All in all, Americans just wanted the British out of America. So here we are, in the midst of a war. The United States won the Battle of Fort McHenry back September 12, 1814. But now I'm here in the aftermath of the Battle of New Orleans, a decisive victory for the United States. Wait, what? I'm just getting word that the war has been over for 2 weeks now. The Treaty of Ghent was signed December 24, 1814, but it seems like word couldn't get to the Americans quick enough, so this entire battle was futile. At least we won. Still, I think there's probably going to be a lot of changes to United States laws after this war. The Federalist Party was against this war, so I doubt they'll be here much longer. Still, this war has shaped our national identity and united us in a way that would not have been possible in a time of peace. And now our economy is booming, and we're best buds with the British. I'd have to call that a success. This was your breaking news from the front lines. Back to you, Timmy.
Thank you, Abby, for the update. Now it's time for the 3-day outlook. Over the past several days, the weather has been fantastic, and there doesn't seem to be any stopping it. The Federalists and the Democratic Republicans seem to be getting along, and the economy is thriving. One could almost call it the era of good feelings. But it looks like next week we might get some possible showers in the afternoon. President James Monroe has noticed a France-Spanish alliance, 2 of several nations that have been trying to capture independent colonies. If you're European, make sure to carry an umbrella because there is a storm coming for you. President Monroe has warned you, Europeans are not to get involved in any American politics. To show how serious he is, President Monroe has enacted the Monroe Doctrine, so be prepared for a twister of changes to foreign policies in the coming weeks. The doctrine states that Europeans cannot create new colonies in America, but America will not interfere with the already made colonies. It's a quid pro quo. Hopefully these new laws will keep it sunny and warm with no hurricanes for a long time. With that, it's back to the studio. Well, that's all we have for today, folks. Tune in tomorrow to see a special presentation on the Jacksonian democracy by special reporters Ellie Story and Kyle Brown. Until next time, this is Founders News Network's 6 o'clock broadcast. Good night, and God bless America.